Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber, and I am very honored and privileged to have with us today Klaus Luchs. He's a really cool dude, and he's also a multi-instrumentalist, singer, songwriter, and producer who started his musical journey on piano at age 7. He discovered guitar as a teenager, started writing, performing, and recording with local bands up in Chicago. He further pursued his passion. He studied classical and jazz guitar with Fareed Haq at Northern Illinois University, and he also had the honor of studying classical guitar with virtuoso Denis Azabajic. Did I get that right? Azabajic. And he also performed in master classes for Sergio Assad at the Chicago College of Performing Arts and Manuel Barueco at the Peabody Conservatory, both very well-known places. Soon after graduating music school, he became a well-known player for live and studio performances up in Chicago, in the Chicago area, before moving down to Nashville in 2013. He's got a strong reputation for being a creative, versatile musician that's highly proficient at playing a multitude of string instruments, and we're going to talk about all this. Last summer, fall of 2016, he was on tour playing 5-string banjo and acoustic guitar for Big Machine recording artist Tara Thompson. He's also filled in as lead guitarist for Warner Music Nashville recording artist William Michael Morgan, and he's currently the utility player, electric, acoustic guitar, and lap steel and mandolin for Lily Winwood, that's Steve Winwood's daughter. Klaus also performs as a sideman for Tony Cartwright, Donica Knight, Haley and Michaels, The Summit, and many other artists in and around Nashville. He's also an active producer, very active at production, as we'll discuss, and songwriter, very active at songwriting too. He releases solo albums under his own name, and he produces and writes for Marley and the Leverage, which is a group he started with singer-songwriter Marley Little. Is that your girlfriend?
It's my girlfriend, yeah.
It's girlfriend. That's a way to get in, man. In January of this year, 2017, Klaus released a new solo album called Z Sessions, which was distributed by 9 North Records. Currently, he's spending most of his time writing music for film and TV with his friend and fellow multi-instrumentalist and producer Shay Watson. He's also got more hair on his head than any human being I've ever met. So congratulations on that, my man. Of course, everything's relative, so maybe my perspective is just really bad being bald. Klaus is endorsed by Deering Banjos, D'Addario and Planet Waves, Mario Martin Guitars, and Rick Kramer Guitars. Then we just were talking before the interview. He's got some beautiful, very cool guitars. Man, thank you so much. You're a very talented guy. I've listened to a lot of your stuff, and thanks for spending your time and coming on the show.
Oh, thank you, man. Appreciate it.
So Z Sessions, great album, and I really enjoyed it. It's a very, we were talking earlier, to me it's just like a very cool, groovy, like a stoner rock album. Very psychedelic, but not like hippie-ish.
Yeah.
And your voice is awesome. By the way, it was really funny because you listen to Klaus's music and his voice is like, beautiful. I mean, he's got a really, really awesome voice. And when you meet him, you like look up at this 6'3" giant shouldered dude and you think, how did that come out of that? How did that voice come out of that?
Yeah,
because
I have another band called Neanderthal Beer Garden, if that gives any indication.
Yeah, well, that would be believable, man. I mean, you're such a big dude. You look like you're, gurgling rocks after you brush your teeth or something. But your voice is like just honestly, it's really beautiful. It's also for a second album, the production was really refined, very, very clean.
Yeah.
And how did that's unusual. Talk about that if you don't mind.
Well, there's several reasons for that. One is, I refined a lot of those skills over the years, on my own. Like before I'll go into a session, I'll basically, have basically kind of like a fully produced song already. I'll program and tap out the drums and whatnot, and I'll play bass, I'll play guitars, I'll play all the keys, I'll put, layer vocals and basically kind of like pre-mix it already. And then I'll take that in to the session. So this time around, I got to work with an amazingly talented friend of mine named Saul Zonana. And he, he's I call him like the big brother I never had. He's very, very good friend of mine, and I look up to him a lot. He's a phenomenal musician and artist in his own. Actually, if you look up his albums are fantastic, and that's actually why I wanted to co-produce this album with him. Is because I'm such a fan of his music. But I'd bring in basically these demos that sounded like produced tracks, and then we'd bring them in. He would give his critiques on them and give his 2 cents, and then maybe change, maybe lengthen or shorten a section. But then we would track live drums at his place.
Did you drum, or did you play all the instruments on this?
On the demos, I did, okay. But anytime I do an album, I always like to get some other musicians on, especially drummers, because I'm not like a studio drummer. I'm good at making up parts and whatnot, but I'd rather have someone who does nothing but play drums all day,
sure.
Play on stuff, And so we had a couple fantastic, Nashville drummers play on my album on different tracks, and then, we would take the drum tracks and then start deciding what we liked about the demo or what we wanted to keep. So, there's a lot of stuff on there where like maybe certain keyboards or guitars, we didn't change it. It's still the same guitars or keyboards that were on the demo. And then, but then there was other stuff where Saul would suggest like, hey man, let's take this in a different direction. We would end up, replacing, some of the drums, or not the drums, replacing some of the guitars and keyboards, and Saul played bass on everything.
Interesting.
He's a great bass player. He's just a great multi-instrumentalist, period. And then we would just kind of rework, whatever we thought needed to be replaced, and kept whatever we thought was good. And that was kind of how it went. It was really fun. And, right now, actually, I'm recording a record for my girlfriend. We're doing kind of the same thing, coming in with tracks, demos that already kind of sound, produced, and then coming in there and changing it up.
When I listen to the album, who's responsible for for lack of a better word, it's clean. Like sometimes you listen to a record, especially artists' earlier albums.
Yeah.
And man, it sounds like the microphone maybe was like across the street or something.
Right.
Who's responsible for that?
Oh, that would be Saul. He mixed it. He's a phenomenal engineer. He's got a great studio at his place, and he's just, he's got the ear for it. He's great at what he does.
Yeah, that was the most impressive. Again, for a second album, it was you're not here. Major artists, you don't even hear it. That the engineering and production, the mixing that clean. So congratulations.
Thanks.
I like the song "You're Everything That Matters." I'm assuming that was for your girlfriend.
Oh yeah, I co-wrote it with her. Yeah.
Very cool song. What's that like? Working with your partner in a situation, because this is your business, right? So what's it like?
Yeah.
But it's not like a normal. Like my wife has handled the back end of most of the business I've been involved in for the last 20 years. But I don't know that, and we always get along. But like, it's different than what you guys are doing. Writing a song, recording. How do you manage that?
It's hit or miss.
There you go. That's why I like you, man. You always gravitate to the honest guys, the brutally honest guys.
I'll be honest, and she would say the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's we love it. It's fun. In the end, it's fun. But yeah, I mean, there's times where it gets tense, or I might say something that the same way I would say to anyone else, but she might take it the wrong way, or like a suggestion or whatnot.
Or you might not say it the way you say to everybody else, that's what I'd be thinking, because you're so I'd be more apt to say something to my wife I'd never say to an employee. Not like in a rude, I would never say something rude like fucking or anything like that, but just, because of the closeness of the relationship. Yeah, no, I'm pretty real about when it comes to music, man, there's no holds barred with me. If I don't like something or I don't think something's working, I'll say it. That's actually how my buddy Saul is too. That's why I like working with him, because he's just like he's from Queens, so he's I get along really well with New Yorkers. Man, that's why we hit it off, bro.
Yeah.
Did you write all the songs in there, or did you and your girlfriend write all the songs?
My girlfriend co-wrote the first track, Everything That Matters. And then my uncle co-wrote, so he wrote the lyrics and I wrote the music for 3 of the songs. And then my buddy Benjamin Olson, who's a great writer and artist that I work with often, he co-wrote a song called Always New on there. And then I think it was the other 4 songs I just wrote by myself.
Wow, that's really cool. That's good. Your uncle, that's interesting. What does he do?
My uncle is a phenomenal writer. He's written for The New Yorker. He's written he used to write for Bill Maher when Bill Maher had the show on ABC. What was that called? Politically Incorrect.
Yeah.
Back in the 90s. Mm-hmm. Before he had his HBO show. So my uncle was a writer for him. He was also a writer for Craig Kilborn. He was also a writer for The Onion for a long time.
That's funny. So is he up in New York also?
No, he actually lives in Wisconsin. He actually manages a radio station.
That's pretty cool, man.
But he constantly gets pieces accepted into literary magazines and writes a ton of poetry and whatnot. He's a really talented writer. And a few years ago, he approached me about, could I send you some lyrics and have you write music to it? And, at the time, I pretty much just always wrote by myself. Or if I was in a band, I wrote with like a band member. But I was like, well, sure. I was like, send me some lyrics and we'll check them out. And I don't know, it was great. Just we kind of had this natural chemistry, probably because he's my uncle. He's so over the years, like he'll send me lyrics and I'll write to him and record them, or it's pretty fun.
That's cool, man. Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, and you had, for the other instruments, what did you play on there? You played guitar, acoustic and electric, and what else?
Oh, on my album?
Yeah.
I played all the acoustic guitars, most of the electric guitars. Saul would come up with an idea sometimes and play something. But for the majority of it is me playing electric guitar. The keyboards are probably like half and half between Saul and I. Cool. And then trying to remember if there's anything. I think that's pretty much it. I didn't really play any banjo on that record. There was a single I released like a year before that called Real Love, and I played lap steel and banjo on that.
Real Love? Where can I find that? Because I want to check out your lap steel play.
Oh, that's on Spotify.
Okay.
Actually, I play lap steel on Lily Winwood's debut EP too. I play lap steel and mandolin on there. There's actually a link to that on like my session work page on my website.
On KlausLuchs.com?
Yeah, you can find.
Yeah, it's KLAUSLUCHS.com. He's got a really good website. There's a lot of good stuff on there.
I got some damn good recommendations from you that I applied.
What are you working on now that you're most excited about?
Well, I'm very excited. My girlfriend's EP is going to be really awesome. Like we have. She's a phenomenal singer and writer, kind of like a Susan Tedeschi-ish, Pretenders-ish type vibe, and we have Peter Frampton's keyboard player playing all the keys.
Bob Mayo?
No, it's this guy Rob Arthur, who's touring with Peter Frampton right now. He's been touring with Peter for like the last 15 years or so.
You know why everybody knows Bob Mayo, right? From the live version of "Do You Feel Like I Do"?
Oh yeah.
Bob Mayo on the keyboards. Bob Mayo.
Yeah.
That was like, I can't even believe I thought of that. I was stuck in the cobweb somewhere.
That's awesome.
So that's pretty cool. So when does that drop?
That'll be. We're finishing up the tracking for it at the end of August. And so hopefully that'll be out, in the probably like late fall, I'm assuming.
Awesome.
And then, all my film and TV stuff, it's really exciting for me, every week. And then, of course, I'm always working on new stuff for my own albums as well. So,
hey,
sometimes the film and TV stuff actually leads into that. Like we've had a song called "Hanging On." My buddy Shay and I have wrote together. That's been licensed probably 24 times in the past 6 months, and I actually ended up releasing that as a single. And on that song, I'm playing pretty much. I'm playing I program the drums and I'm playing all the guitars and a lot of the keys. Shay's playing some keys and some synth bass and stuff on there. But that actually, I actually ended up liking it so much I just released it as a single.
Awesome. Okay, so let's talk about the movie stuff. First of all, you are an unusual artist in the sense that you are as comfortable, if not maybe even more comfortable, in the studio and understanding the whole recording process and like everything soup to nuts as you are, standing behind a mic playing guitar.
Yeah. I love the studio. Studio is like definitely where I don't know. I feel like I'm never wasting time when I'm in the studio. Sometimes, you play certain gigs or, whatever, and you ends up just feeling like a waste of time sometimes, for whatever reason. But in the studio, I know that everything I'm doing always has an application, both for me, personally, artistically, but also financially, because I know that the songs can be pitched,
Okay, so let's talk about that. And for people that aren't aware of what we're going to talk about, can you just explain in layman's terms what sync is? And when I say sync, SYNC is what we're talking about. And it's actually one of the few areas of music that where more dollars and revenue for artists are being generated.
Yeah, it's honestly one of the ways you can still make money off of recorded music. I mean, there's such an abundance of TV shows and networks that are constantly looking for original content, original music, and at the same time they don't want to pay the prices for, say, like the Rolling Stones, know. And number two, they also they sometimes like to be the people that break a new artist. I mean, because everyone's heard "Give Me Shelter" used like 500 million times in a movie or a TV show, but having some new, fresh content not only saves them money from not having to pay the Rolling Stones, but also gives new artists and producers and songwriters a chance to be heard and make money.
So sync is basically the process of artists intermingling with movie, any kind of televised or screen stuff.
Yeah.
Or online stuff now as well.
Yeah, so every TV show has a music supervisor who is deciding and requesting what gets put into a show or an advertisement, movie, whatever. So the music supervisors, they're the gatekeepers to what gets put into a show, essentially.
Okay, so how do they? I'm assuming they go through like a middle person, a broker. They don't go out and call artists or get pitched, do they?
No. Then you have licensing reps who will represent you, and they're the ones that have the relationships with a large range of music supervisors. So most of this is based in LA, obviously, because that's where most of the film and TV industry is. So, these reps are going to conferences all the time or going to lunches and meetings and just expanding their base of music supervisors that they're friendly and in touch with on a constant basis. And then they in turn, contact people like us, and we're on a short list of people that get contacted every time that they have a specific request. And then, we basically shoot in, we try to give them what they request, and we have a pretty high success rate with it, but sometimes you get rejected, so the more you try, the more you succeed.
The more at-bats, the more hits you get.
Exactly. So, we pump out, I don't know, at least, usually a dozen songs or more a week, fully produced.
Wow. So you're basically putting out 500 to 600 songs or 500 to 700 songs a year.
Basically.
So that's 2 songs a day, roughly. So you're writing them. Explain to the listeners what's involved, because this is a phenomenal amount of work.
So, basically, I got into this whole business through my friend Shay Watson.
How'd you guys meet?
We actually met on the set of the show Nashville. We were both on the show.
Okay. Very cool.
So, it just so happened, and this is a couple of years ago now, and it just so happened that he needed another person like him who could sing, play a bunch of different instruments, engineer, produce, and, is capable of writing lyrics and just writing songs in general. So we, I shot him my website, and I gave him a CD and stuff, and vice versa. And we both checked each other's stuff out and liked it. And so we were like, yeah, let's get together sometime and do this. And so we got to, and he'd already been successful at this. He had already been landing placements and whatnot. So we got together our first time, and the very first song we did together just turned out great, and we both loved it. And so then we just started working together every week, and it snowballed, and we had a placement together within it was like one of the first songs we wrote together got placed very quickly. That's all.
You know what? And I've talked about this on a lot of episodes. When you do something professionally, no matter what business you're in, and there's rapid acceptance of what you do, it's such, I've seen it's the universe supporting you.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to navigate the music business. So, a lot of it is just taking chances on things, and, kind of like what you were talking about, with your business, it's all taking chances.
Everything. But when you get an early, rapid, best way to get my dog to bark is get on the phone and do an interview, or, it's like, how do you get it to rain? Wash your car.
Yeah, it's all good. It's happening on both ends. Got a screaming cat, you got a barking dog.
Yeah, my cats are nipping at the door in a minute. But when you have an early success like that and things grow organically, it's almost a surefire guarantee for success. I mean, you got to work your ass off like you're doing, but it's really nice to see, it's a situation where everything's working, and it's like, it's not that it's easy, but it's a lot less stress than when you're having to bash your head against the wall to get the littlest bit of progress. Because I've been in both ends, and in businesses, various businesses, in both of those sides, and I vowed a few years ago if something isn't working organically, to just put it down. It's too much stress versus, as you just said, trying something else,
right, and
seeing if it happens.
The tough thing about licensing too is like you really don't start making a lot of money until a year later, because that's how long it takes for ASCAP or BMI or CSAC to pay you for your royalties. So that's not true. It's like the sync part of it. So basically, it depends on the show, it depends on the network. But some shows, like one of the first things we landed was we landed a song on the show Shameless on Showtime. Mm-hmm. Now, I can't remember what the sync fee was. I think it was like a couple grand or something like that, which they have up to about 6 months to pay you that fee usually. Wow. So, it could come anywhere from a few weeks to 6 months, So, yeah.
Interesting.
You made money, but you don't have it yet, And then same thing with the royalties. So the sync fee is one aspect. Some shows don't even offer a sync fee because, you just get paid off for royalties on the back end. But you get royalties no matter what, unless you get a buyout. A buyout, then, of course, they just pay you for the use one time, and then you never get paid royalties on it.
So they're basically is that like they're saying
they bought out the right to license that song.
Okay.
And anytime it's played, they don't have to keep paying you.
So they're gonna give you a good chunk of money for that, I would imagine, no?
Usually, and it depends on what it is. Like we had a buyout on some like Hallmark movie, like some Hallmark Christmas movie. And they only used the song literally for 1 second because this girl got in a car crash as she was turning the radio dial. Our song came on for 1 second, and she got into a car accident.
Oh my god, that's hilarious!
But for that,
was she okay? No,
yeah,
I'm just kidding.
But I'm trying to remember what it was. It was like, I don't know, maybe like $800 to $1,000 or something like that. But it was for like 1 second. And it was a buyout.
But they could use that whenever. So
yeah, but it's only 1 second, so it's not like we cared. It's like it was 1 second of the song, and they bought it out from us.
So I guess companies will give you a buyout like any other thing you're buying. Like if they feel, oh man, this is a good property, and I could see us using it quite a bit. Let's buy it out so we don't have to deal with royalties.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, so let me just see if I understood this, what you said before. Everything that goes on the air or online in some cases has a music director. Music directors have...
Music supervisors,
sorry.
Yeah.
So music supervisors have relationships with licensing reps.
Yes.
And I guess like any other business, they've got their particular handful of reps that they work with steady because they get good results with them.
Exactly. It's all about results. Okay. That's why there's like, like I get a lot of people ask me like, well, how do I get into this? And they want to get into this, and they'll like hound Shay or I down to try to work with us. And the thing is like 90% of the time it's just Shay and I, because we can both sing and play everything. So we really don't need anyone else. But sometimes, we do like to work with other vocalists just so we get a completely different sound, or different writers,
Yeah.
And we will bring in people into the fold to work with us. But I guess what people don't understand is it's a large skill set that very few people have. And I don't say that in a way to try to make myself, sound like anything special, but I mean it's something you have to develop, and you can't just be a great guitarist or just a great singer or whatever, or even just a great songwriter. You have to be all of those things. You have to be a multi-instrumentalist, an engineer, a producer, a singer, a lyricist, and you have to be able to really pay attention to detail. And these music supervisors aren't always musicians, so they'll make some odd requests.
That's right.
And so you're trying to please a business person who really might not even really give a shit about what problems you have with trying to achieve whatever sound is in their head. They just want to hear it because that's what they hear, and they don't know how to really explain it to you other than they might say, "Can this sound more purple?"
That's a literal request you've had.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, you get some, or they'll say warm or edgy, or and it's like you have to interpret what that means to them. And sometimes you only achieve that by working with them for a little while, and, like our rep we sent in a song the other day that I think artistically is cool as hell. It's just like, we both loved it. But she sent back like all these critiques about how it needs to be more of like a dance tune, or it needs to be, she wanted more. So we know that she meant she wanted to have more of a 4 on the floor beat, She was also saying she wanted more like kind of electronic EDM type elements to it. But so then we have to go back and make those changes. If that's what she wants, that's what she wants.
Now, is a licensing rep, is your relationship with a licensing rep exclusive, or can you have multiple licensing reps?
Depends. Depends on the contract you have with the person. In our case, we can work with other people if we want to, but we prefer to work with her because she's just gets results. And Shay is basically the point man on this. Like I don't really have much contact with her too often. He basically is like the quarterback of that, and then I help in other ways, and then I also we split the duty of production and engineering and playing and writing and all that. I'll bring in different artists a lot of times to work with us and whatnot. Like that's like we actually have Lily Winwood coming in with us. I think not this week, next week. She's coming in for a session. So,
okay, I'm always thinking things from a business standpoint, because I'm thinking, man, if you agree to an exclusive agreement with somebody, wouldn't that be worth it to say, okay, we're going to work with you only, but let's say regular royalty is X. We'll do that in exchange for X plus 20%. Otherwise, we're going to work with 20 different people and have let's say half of them aren't good. 10 times more opportunities to get our stuff placed.
Yeah, but she doesn't get paid unless she lands a placement for us. So it's in her best interest to shop our stuff around, and she's had such. We basically have stuff on TV every week.
Okay, so she's proven
she's making money off of it. She's making a lot of money off of us.
Okay,
and we're making a lot of money off of her. So it's a very
symbiotic relationship.
That was exactly the word I was going for. That's awesome. Yeah, it's a very symbiotic relationship.
Okay,
and she likes working with us. We like working with her. So it's kind of like if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
No, I hear you. That's unusual because one of the comments that very consistent comments that I have had with, you're more of a business guy and you've been around the block a couple of times, but a lot of the younger musicians I interview, one of the consistent comments I get from them is they don't use these words, but their relationships are very predatory in the beginning.
Yeah.
And they've all said, hey, I've had to learn how to, what's that expression? If it's to be, it's up to me. Like if I'm going to rely on someone else deciding how much I make, I'm going to make nothing ever. And I've got to just grow a sack and be able to say what I want.
Right.
And this seems like a nice relationship where it's, like you said, symbiotic and it's, mutually encouraging.
Well, yeah. I mean, so there are, like, for instance, I'm not going to mention his name, but I know of and I've never worked with him, so that's also why I don't really want to mention his name. So I don't know what he's like. He might be fantastic. I don't know. But there's a licensing agent rep in Nashville, and he charges you up front. He charges you to be like a member of his service. So he'll pitch. And see, and that's why I don't want to mention this guy's name, because I don't know. He might be awesome. He might be.
Yeah, but that sounds like those. Sorry to cut you off. I got it because I'm passionate about. I hate predatory behavior.
Yeah,
that's like those late night TV commercials that, hey, send us some money, we'll we'll file your patent for you, or something like that.
Well, here's the thing about that. Like our rep, she's in LA, so she's around all of them. I mean, like we have something really big happening soon that I don't really want to talk about yet, but we landed a really major placement.
That's awesome.
And she did that for us, but then again, we delivered for her. She asked for something, we gave it. We gave her exactly what she wanted, exactly what she was hearing in her head, and she landed this massive placement for us, and it's going to benefit her just as much as it benefits us.
That's awesome.
So she's got a reason to be out there fighting for us. She's got a reason to land these placements, because she doesn't make money if we don't make money. Whereas the other way around, it's like, yeah, you're getting money from me every month, if I'm paying like a service fee, so why would you need to pitch my stuff?
Yeah.
Because you're making money whether you land it for me or not. Whereas our rep, she's got to hustle.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And it's funny. I remember, this is ages ago when I was in college, that from the earliest as you can go back, whenever they've run business models, whenever you have people incentivized on a commission basis, that's when you make the most. That's when gross work is done like that, because that's how it works. You're relying on sales, and nothing's going to get done otherwise. Those guys hustle. So I just want to explain to people this entire process, because you said it was specialized, and we really didn't address that. And what Klaus means, and please feel free to correct me or jump in, is that not only he has to write these 700 songs. He has to write them start to finish. He has to play him and his partner have to play all the instruments on them. They have to produce them, they have to mix them, and they have to engineer them, and they have to send the track into the licensing rep, get feedback on it. And so at any given time, you may have 20, 30, 40 tracks in motion and they're coming back at you to make changes on all of them. Is that correct?
Yeah, especially when something does get picked too. So like, say a show says, yes, we want to use this song, but could you, it could be something as simple as, could you turn the organ down a little bit? Mm-hmm. Or it could be something as complicated as, yeah, we love the melody. Can you turn this into more of a dance song? Kind of like what I was telling you about earlier, so it might be like a song that's rocking or something, and then you have to turn it into more of a EDM style or something, So, I mean, that gets things like that where basically you're kind of almost starting the production all over from scratch.
Yeah, I totally get it. That's a lot of work to do that 700 times in a year. That's why. Well,
it's crazy. Yeah, I mean, sometimes like my brain is melting out of my ears.
Well, because you got so many songs going at once, it's like at a certain point, at 2 a.m, you're thinking, wait a minute, am I even working on the right song to tweak here?
Right.
Yeah. I can see that.
and then you're engineering yourself and stuff too, and producing, and it's just like, you're doing all these tasks that are usually assigned to one person.
Right.
Or to
multiple people.
Individual people is what I mean. And you're doing it as one person, and that's it. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just like,
it's a lot.
One of my favorite things to do is late at night when I'm done with all that stuff is I'll play some video games. I need something.
Yeah, man, you got to do something to unwind.
Something to get my mind off of it.
Watch the cooking channel or something.
Yeah.
Or Pet Network.
Yeah.
Hey, where are you originally from, and where'd you grow up?
So I'm originally from the Chicago area, and to be specific, Aurora, Illinois.
Shout out to Aurora.
Aurora, Illinois. Home of Wayne's World.
Oh, is it really?
City of Lights, yeah.
There you go.
It's Aurora is a very cool, like, blue-collar suburb of Chicago. It's almost like, a miniature Chicago in some ways. It's very multicultural, socioeconomically diverse, and the music in that town too is reflected in that. We had a lot of jazz and blues and rock and everything in between. It was cool. I liked growing up there.
What kind of childhood did you have?
My father is actually in the film business. He's what they call a gaffer.
What is that? I always see that. What is a gaffer?
A gaffer is the head electrician and lighting director for motion pictures, or film in general, commercials, motion pictures, TV shows. So he did that, and my mom,
he did that in Chicago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Chicago's got a pretty thriving film business. A lot of shows are filmed there. A lot of movies get filmed there. Tons of commercials because Chicago is such a corporate city.
Right.
You always have corporate clients coming in filming commercials and whatnot. So he got a lot of work doing commercials and TV shows and whatnot.
That's great.
Yeah. And so then my mom stayed at home while we were growing up, but she's a sales rep, and that's what she does full time.
And you have a younger brother rather, who also plays guitar, right? Guitar, she said.
Yeah, fantastic guitar player. Yeah.
So it's the two of you guys, or is any other siblings?
Just the two of us. Yeah.
So that must have been awesome, like having a brother who also played.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit older than him. He got influenced to play from watching me play. He wanted to be like Big Brother, and he started getting good. And yeah, it's awesome because when I go back home, we'll both learn stuff from each other and jam with each other. Actually, before I moved to Nashville, we were gonna start a band together, this funk band. It was gonna be pretty fun. But it didn't end up happening.
Do you guys call each other like for musical advice, or just to like to vent and for support on certain issues?
Oh, sure.
That's cool.
Yeah. I mean,
that's really nice. That's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, we both learn a lot from each other.
What was your first exposure to music, and at what point in time did you say, because you've been a student of music, it seems like forever, since you were 10, you said. At what point in time, I guess, did you say, man, I'm going to do this for a living, I like this?
Well, I always loved music. I was always my dad had he's very artistic, from being in the film business. He's also a writer, and he's a very, very cultured person, appreciates all kinds of genres of art and music. And so he had a really awesome, vinyl collection. And I just remember, hearing everything from classical music to jazz I remember popping on Pink Floyd on the vinyl and listening to Dark Side of the Moon and just being mesmerized.
Dude, I still listen to that in my car. If I'm in the car alone at night, which doesn't happen often, but it's just it's like a spiritual experience almost, man.
It is, man. I mean, that's one of the things kind of makes me sad about today is everything there's almost too much content just everywhere, and I feel like people used to sit down on the floor and just listen to an album all the way through and kind of space out and fantasize about it and let it take them somewhere. And it's like nowadays people have their Spotify playlist, and it's like 100 different artists they're listening to in an hour. It's kind of like.
Can I tell you something? I do not have a Spotify account.
No.
I'm like old school. I have my iTunes here, and I have, let's see, I have on my iTunes, take a quick look here, 3,600 albums. How many songs in total? 1,184. How do I even? It used to be on the bottom to tell you how many songs. I got like 40,000 songs because I like doing that. I feel like music is. It's a very intimate thing, and I want to know that artist, and you get to know them by listening to their album.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like I listened to your whole albums several times.
I appreciate that.
No, because it was good. I wouldn't say anything if I wasn't true.
Yeah, you'd avoid the topic. Yeah.
No, I would. I'm not the guy to bullshit anybody. But I really enjoyed it. But I got to know you. I felt like, we had talked and we had a really good connection. But I got really comfortable with you, like to follow up with a couple of texts, and then we were, like kidding each other, busting balls a little bit or whatever. But that. You gave me an opportunity to get to know you from your music, and it was a really good opportunity. I really enjoyed it. I felt like, man, this guy spoke to me, and I, that therefore, we can communicate outside of music just as well. That's at least what's going through my head.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, but I agree with you. I think it's and people don't even know. Like when I have the songs come on in my radio, if it's a CD I'm not that familiar with, I'll always look at it because I just feel like, shit, I got to know the name of the song. How am I going to recall that? I can't remember. I just can't say, oh, it's album 4, song 3. I just feel like I'm prostituting the experience, sort of, which is probably kind of weird, but I'm with you on that 100%, man.
Yeah, because I also think it's the artist's responsibility to make an album as good as they possibly can. Make something worth listening all the way through. Do your best to make interesting songs, heartfelt songs. And maybe people actually will make it through the whole album.
Yeah.
Everyone's so focused on a single. Every major artist or people I've been on tour with, it's a single. It's like, God, just write good songs.
Yeah. And I've talked about this with a number of musicians, and I always feel like I'm sounding like an old man after the conversation, because the net conclusion is always the same of, people don't seem to. It's like attention span has been severely dulled. Yeah. And I always attribute it to social media, but I agree with you 100%. I think you should have an experience, and I miss those days too. I miss that musical experience. That's not really. That's why people talk to me about, man, did you hear this hit? And I'm like, when did it come out? Last week. I'm like, no, I stopped listening to modern music after Pearl Jam.
Yeah, man, I know. Well, part of the problem with that though is in 1996, Bill Clinton signed the Telecommunications Act, which, if you look that up, basically there were protections in place before that kept people from owning more than 2 media outlets in any given area. Mm-hmm. So before that, and I'm just quoting what I remember, it was something like around 1,200 people. There was 1,200 different companies that owned all the radio stations in America. It was roughly something like that. But now there's only about 3 that own like 95% of all the radio stations. Oh. So, that's why before that, DJs actually had a lot of influence. Your local DJ,
yes,
if they really liked something, they could play the shit out of it,
right? And
that would gain a local following. I mean, that's like what happened with bands like in Chicago, for instance, like the Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah,
like sure. Smashing Pumpkins, if they came out now, wouldn't be able to do shit. you know, because like they wouldn't be able to break in onto the radio. I mean, like, you know, they sold out the Metro and, you know, had some songs on local radio and were able to get people interested in signing them, you know. But without radio support, you know, without a local DJ spinning your stuff, they just can't. It's really hard.
Well, plus their songs are like 6 minutes long on the average, which
well, that too.
Which is about 2 to 3 minutes longer than like it seems what's going on now.
Right, but now since there's only all the radio stations are basically in the hand of just 3 companies. Now you have program lists that are it's like the same thing as playing on all of these radio stations across the entire country.
Yeah.
They're using the same playlist, you know, and it's I mean, and I've been on radio tours with artists too, so I've seen how this whole thing unfolds, you know. You have to end up paying a radio rep, you know, for a company to take you out and try to basically pay off people to get you spins on a radio station for Cumulus or iHeartRadio or whatever, you know. I mean, it's insane. You know, people spend up, like most country artists will end up spending like close to $1 million for a radio campaign to convince these stations to play their single.
Man, it's like the pharmaceutical company reps that go around and
it is.
You know, the doctors get vacations and trips and shit for, you know, prescribing a certain drug.
It's practically identical, and it's messed up. So for me, like that's why I got so interested in all the licensing stuff, was because to me that's the way around that.
Yes.
I don't have to deal with that. You know, I can get my song. I have songs off the Z Session album that have been licensed a ton of times and have been heard by millions of people, you know, through TV shows, with skipping having to be on the radio and deal with all that awfulness.
Yeah, that's a very clever. Was that by design? Like, did you get once?
It was a goal of mine. It was a goal of mine, and I, you know, was just lucky. I fell into that by meeting my friend Shay. I mean, it's just luck that, you know, chance. It was a chance meeting. You know, and we both just happened to be casted to be on the show Nashville together, and that's how we met. It was a chance meeting.
That's awesome.
And you know, he had already had, you know, he'd been doing this for, I can't remember how many years. I don't want to quote him, but it's something like 5 or 6 years before he met me. He had already been getting successful with that, and then, you know, him and I have just really taken off together. We both really complement each other musically, and I have like the highest respect for him as a musician and producer, and I know it's vice versa with him. So, you know, he's like one of my best friends now too. So it's just one of those things. I mean, I wanted to get into that, and I wanted to do all that, but I was honestly just lucky that I met someone like him, and we just gelled so well together. And, you know,
that's awesome, man. And I can't wait to, like, you know, like a couple of years from now, have another one of these interviews and see where, you know, what's evolved from this. Like, now you may be only doing or you may be in LA living in there and only doing movies or something like that.
Could be. I mean, that's one thing that's been kind of floating around, actually, because there's been few big things that have happened recently that I haven't told anyone yet, but eventually I'll tell you. I'll let you know.
Yeah, man, I'd love to hear about it, honestly.
But yeah, a few big things in the works right now that could be really life-changing.
That's awesome, man. Hey, let me ask you a question. You know, everybody, no matter what business you're in, you always pay tuition by making mistakes. And I was wondering if you could maybe share 1 or 2 mistakes that you've made in your career and what you've learned from them. Yeah, I know. It's like 1 or 2. We need to
let me make a whole list here.
I'm with you, man. Believe me. I am with you.
Oh, man. I mean, so much of what I've done has just been so much trial and error, man. I mean, neither of my parents are musicians. So, you know, I mean, they're both self-employed, and that definitely gave me a good perspective on what to do and whatnot. But I mean, as far as who to get connected to and how to do it, I mean, I had zero help. I didn't have any direction whatsoever. I mean, and it's not my parents' fault. They just don't know anything about that. Most people don't. I mean, most musicians don't.
I've mentioned this to several people, and the lion's share of musicians have, unless they're already involved in sync in some aspect, they have no clue.
Yeah. But I mean, the one thing I will say is my parents have always been 100% supportive, and which to me, that's worth its weight in gold. To say, have someone say, "Hey, we know you work hard. We know you can do this. Just keep at it. Keep the faith." Because there's been times where I get depressed, or I feel beaten down or whatever, and it's like my parents have always been kind and have said the right things to kind of shake me out of it or kick my ass. My parents are no bullshit people, so they're not afraid to tell me if they think I'm doing something wrong, or if they think there's been bands I've been in when I was younger that they were like, "You should get out of that band. You're wasting your time."
It's interesting. One of the reasons I love and respect my wife so much for all these years, 25 now, is that I don't get down a lot, but when I do, I really need a strong person to do exactly what you said, to kick my ass. Yeah. And that is really so important to sort of get, if you're a strong personality and you're in a funk, it's really important that someone's there to get you out of it. And it sounds like you appreciate that so much with your folks, and I'm the same way with my wife with that. I'm just so grateful for that. So I totally
oh yeah,
it, man.
You're lucky anytime you have people like that in your life,
Yeah, and I have this thing on my wall. It's kind of reflective of what you said. It says there's only 3 reasons you will not be successful. Number 1, you don't try new things. Number 2, you don't learn from what you try. And number 3, you give up. And like the other day, we're running I have a couple of businesses I'm involved with, and we did a trial on something that it didn't work, and so I came in there and I just read that number 3, you don't give up. I said, okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
Because it's doing what you do is tough, man.
It is. It's very tough, and there's it's not like a normal job where you like an office job where you kind of have a day plan for you.
Right.
And I'm not saying that, that's not hard. I mean, of course, any job can be difficult, but I mean, music though is kind of chaos. Like there's no predetermined path to take, and what might work for me and what might have given me success might not do the same for someone else. Everyone's kind of on their own in a way in the music business. Like you kind of have to just figure out, where to go, and that's what's kind of daunting about it. And I guess for me, like one of the biggest mistakes I would say I made early on in my career is just not being assertive enough about business. Like I definitely got taken advantage by people early on, where I didn't demand enough money, or I didn't demand that my time was valuable, where people would get like just free time out of me, and then in the end, you like time. I remember thinking back to, like, for instance, there was an artist one time who I thought was very talented, and I basically did a bunch of like free guitar work for him. And then, because I was like, this album's going to sound really cool, and it'll be a good example of, my session guitar playing. Mm-hmm. And this guy always like changed his mind about stuff, and always could never like decide on. Basically wanted to change his style every week. So then all the stuff we recorded with him for free, he didn't want to release. So I didn't get paid, and I also didn't get the exposure, and that was essentially going to be my payment. That was essentially what I was going to benefit from it.
Which is bad enough. I don't know if you ever see that meme? I'm going to see how many exposure bucks I earned this week or something like that.
Right. And, me being younger and not as knowledgeable, I fell into that trap, and it never never will happen again. You know, I learned, and it was a couple of different experiences I had right around that same time, where looking back, I was like, man, I was an idiot. I should have demanded that I got paid. I should have demanded, you know, my time is worth getting paid for, essentially, is what I've learned.
Absolutely. Well, good. I'm really glad you learned it. And you sound like you're a little indignant about it, which I think is important, because I know for me, righteous indignation has allowed me to accomplish a lot.
Oh yeah, man. Like I don't dwell on things, you know,
Yeah.
like I don't let things, but if I remember back to something like that, yeah, it'll, like, thinking about it will kind of like piss me off a little bit, but I don't, it's like, but who I'm actually pissed off at is myself.
I totally get it.
Because I'm pissed that I was dumb enough not to require that person paying me what I deserved.
Man, I totally get it. I've been in that.
So it's more like me being pissed that I got burned, you know.
Yeah, but it's almost impossible not to.
Yeah.
You know, it's like what was your coping skills at that time compared to the task you had at hand?
Right.
And it's like you're coming to the fight with a water gun and they got a bazooka.
Yeah.
You got to have a chance. It's just the way it is. I totally get it, man. Yeah. Totally.
There was a couple other, like, recording projects around that time too, where same thing, like, you know, I wanted to be on some recording, so I had something, you know, to prove that I could, you know, get session work. And eventually, you know, that ended up happening, and I ended up getting pretty busy around Chicago with session work, and but then, of course, right as that started to happen, I moved to Nashville, so I had to start over from scratch. But yeah, I guess the number one thing I would, you know, always tell younger musicians is be assertive about your business interests. You know, I mean, you are selling yourself, essentially. You're selling your time, and you are worth something. And if you don't think you're worth something, then
you better get out of business.
Maybe just get out of the business. You know, it's exposure is never enough. I don't give a shit what anyone says. It's just you're in the end, you're just going to burn yourself, and I can tell you that from having it happen several times to myself.
I don't think there's any way you could learn to value your time unless you do get burned, because I've seen it. It's something I've been talking to my wife about since I got into business, and she became a realtor 2 years ago after our third child was kind of like pretty much grown up and on autopilot. And, you know, I said to her, I said, listen, you're going to have to learn to value your time, and I can't shortcut that process for you as much as I'm going to watch you and get frustrated. So just in advance to let you know, I'm going to like get aggravated. I'm not aggravated at you. I'm aggravated at a situation that somebody else didn't value your time. I said, but you'll get it. And now, to her credit, 2 years later, man, it's exactly what you said. She's been burned enough time. It's like, I'm not doing that. You know, you have to do X for me before I'm going to do Y for you. You know, we're not, you know, I'm not in the free business game.
Yeah.
And I think it just takes a while. I don't think it's possible to learn that.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, all that really matters is that you learn from your mistakes, because because in this business, like any other business, you're gonna make mistakes. You're not gonna have a flawless run.
No,
I'm sorry. I hate to break it to any young musicians who might be listening to this, but you're gonna fuck up.
Absolutely, man. I agree with you 100%.
It's just the way it is.
Hey, let's go to the flip side of that. Are there one or two things that you've done that at the time they were out of your comfort zone, but they turned out to be really big, positive, good things that you did?
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing I feel like I've always been pretty good at, is taking risks and chances. I mean, whether I fall on my face or not, I try. But one thing would be getting into the banjo. Like, I guess I'm going to bust myself on this, but this is the first time I've ever told this story. But when I first came, it'll be hilarious if they hear this. My God, when I first came down or was going to move to Nashville, I was down here playing on a session, playing like mandolin on a session for a songwriter friend of mine, who was from Chicago, but brought me down. And I played on the session with him, and he ended up introducing me to this guy, Ryan Michaels, who is the other half of Haley and Michaels, which is a band that I've done some touring with, and we played on the Today Show. And, really nice couple, and they just a female male singer songwriter type duo. Anyways, I met Ryan, and he said that he was looking for a utility player and needed someone who could play electric guitar, which I did. And then he asked me, he's like, do you play mandolin? And I was like, yeah, I do. And he goes, do you play banjo? And at the time, I did not play banjo. So I lied and said I did.
Awesome.
And so he goes, oh, well, perfect. He's like, we're actually playing a gig in Chicago at the House of Blues on
wow. Not too much pressure.
It was like in a month. And so he's like, would you be able to get a band? Like, because at this time they didn't have they're living in Nashville, and they didn't have like a solid band. They were just kind of hiring people whenever they needed them.
Wait, so you moved down to Nashville and your first gig is in Chicago?
No, I'm sorry. I'm probably all over the place telling the story just because I've never really told it.
Expose.
So I'm still living in Chicago at this time.
Oh, okay.
So this is like, let me try to think about this. This is like end of June of 2013. Okay. Yeah, and I'm still living in Chicago, and I just happened to go down to Nashville with this songwriter I know, and I ended up playing on this session or whatever. And then I ended up meeting this Ryan Michaels guy because he knew him. He's like, yeah, you should meet him. We'll have breakfast with him. Got it. So that's what we did. We went to breakfast with Ryan. So Ryan just kind of liked me right away and started asking me all these questions, And so they were looking for a utility player, and since they didn't really have a band, they already had a guitar player. They already had a lead guitar player. So, but they didn't really every time they played out, they were just hiring local Nashville musicians to play showcases and stuff with them.
Gotcha.
So they didn't want to pay to have Nashville musicians travel up to Chicago just to play the show.
Okay.
So he was seeing if he could hire some Chicago musicians, and so I said, yeah, I could easily put a band of really good guys, behind you in Chicago. And so, anyways, I had just released my Eclecticism CD at that time.
That was your first?
Okay. And I gave him a copy of that. We said our goodbyes and all that.
But how cool is that you, most people give him a business card and you're giving him a copy of your CD. That carries so much weight. I wrote a marketing book, and when I would meet clients, hey, can you tell me about you? No, man, I'm just going to send you my book, and you let me know. You make your own decision. It's the same thing. It's very, very awesome for you, man. That's great.
Well, it was crazy. So we exchanged numbers too. It was crazy. So I'm back in Chicago the next day, and I'm on a treadmill, working out, and I see a 615 number calling me. And I answer it, and I'm like, hello? And he's like, hey, man, it's Ryan from yesterday. He's like, because I listened to your CD. He's like, and then I looked, and he's like, I saw you produced it and engineered it and played all the instruments and crap. And he's like, well, except for drums and bass, But he's like, man, he's like, what can I do to get you down to Nashville?
Awesome.
So basically, we talked it out, and he's like, well, basically these shows, we did a show in Chicago and Milwaukee, and he's like, these shows will determine, if we decide to use you or whatever. So I ended up playing with them. They ended up loving me, and well, before that though, I had to learn banjo. I had to buy a banjo and learn how to play it in like 3 weeks. And
wow, man, but you know what? You're probably so excited.
Well, because I played classical guitar, though, I transferred right over the right hand stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I just basically, just figured out how to play all my chord voicings and whatnot in the tuning of the banjo, and then I would watch like YouTube videos of good banjo players and would see how they were doing things, and then ended up getting the gig. They were none the wiser. They didn't realize I'd only been playing banjo for a couple of weeks. So
well, that's awesome, man.
So yeah, I basically lied my way down to Nashville.
You know what though? You didn't, because you got it down, and I mean, they didn't say, "Hey, listen, can you play lead banjo over the course of the evening?" I mean, correct. You probably knew, okay, I have to play banjo. That means I'm going to play some fills. It's probably going to be one or two songs, and I can handle that competently and confidently without embarrassing them or myself.
Totally.
Yeah,
totally.
Man, that's really cool. I think that's awesome. I think that's the guy I want, man. I want that guy working with me.
Yeah, man. That's how I've always. That's the one thing I have always done right. I've made so many other mistakes, but I've always done that right. I've always taken chances when I thought they were worth taking, and I've put myself in situations where, yeah, I'm going to have to work hard. I'm going to have to like really practice the shit out of something or really learn something, but I'll get it done.
That's awesome, man. That's a great story. Thank you for sharing that. That was really cool.
Yeah, now they're gonna know.
That's all right, man. They'll appreciate you. About it. Yeah. No, man, they'll probably be like, man, I'm so glad we took this guy. That's the guy people want. You don't want the guy. I mean, that's the guy who's hungry, and you put your shit together, and it was great, man. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Who are your biggest influences guitar wise?
Oh man, I mean, there's a lot of them, but I mean. Some obvious ones like Hendrix. There was a period I went through, especially when I was a teenager, where I was just obsessed with Hendrix, always playing Hendrix and learning Hendrix solos and whatnot. I definitely love him. I mean, Jimmy Page, obviously another obvious one.
Mm-hmm.
Always been a huge Zeppelin fan. Also, the other reason I love those guys is just because they're so good in the studio, which leads into like David Gilmour. They played with a purpose. They made great melodies.
Not a purpose beyond like, let's sell this single. I think that's what you mean, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, you felt something.
Oh, yeah.
And it was artistic. I mean, like, Jimmy Page is like a painter.
Yes.
The different colors he gets on the. I mean, those Led Zeppelin records are beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
He produced all of them too.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other thing that people forget is like, some people will bash Jimmy Page too, like say he's a sloppy guitar player. He was kind of sloppy live. I mean, but the guy was also had like a heroin
major drug problem
too. Yeah. So I mean, cut the guy some slack.
Yeah.
But
listen, he was the top.
He was fucking brilliant.
He was the top studio guitarist in London.
And there's reason. It's more than this would be another misconception I would tell younger musicians of all kinds. It's not about just being like some shred master on your instrument. In the studio, it's about you have to be. That's why songwriting actually goes hand in hand with session playing, because it's about making parts. And a producer will hire you. The reason they'll hire you is how good at you are, not only playing technically consistent, but how good are you in making parts and layering. With guitar, that is extremely important. That's like the number one reason you'll get hired for a session is like, how good is this guy at making interlocking parts that have color, and Jimmy Page is a great example of that and a great person to study for that.
Yeah, he was as you said, his production skills and his song structuring skills were second to none.
Yeah. Like Brendan O'Brien is a producer I think of a lot who did the Pearl Jam record, Stone Temple Pilots. Like those guitar parts on those songs are fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like the layering and the choice of tones. That I mean, that to me is like what makes an amazing guitar player more than anything. It's just, and that's what makes all those different guitar players I mentioned special, is no one else sounds like them. They have their own way of saying things and coloring things.
I agree with you. Our influences are sort of very similar.
Yeah.
I have just a lot of blues influences.
Oh yeah, I could name guitar players from every genre. I mean, I love like obviously obvious ones like B.B. King. You know, I love Albert. I love all the Kings. Freddie King, Albert King. they're all awesome.
Totally.
You know, I love guys like Sonny Landreth. I love his slide playing.
Yep.
And he's amazing. I love like modern jazz guys like Charlie Hunter. You know, he's got the hybrid bass guitar thing.
I've never heard of that. Charlie Hunter.
Charlie Hunter. Yeah, he plays an 8-string guitar. It's got 3 bass strings and 5 guitar strings.
Holy smokes!
And he plays the bass with his thumb, and he plays, you know, the chord voicings with his other fingers. He's pretty incredible. I love John Scofield.
Yeah, he's a great player.
John McLaughlin.
You like Warren Haynes? You listen to a lot of Warren Haynes at all?
Warren Haynes kicks ass.
Yeah, great player.
Alan Holdsworth, who just died, I was a huge fan of him. Particularly the stuff he did with Tony Williams. Like, that's some of my favorite stuff.
Right, the drummer.
Yeah, Tony. Yeah, he had a was it Tony Williams Lifetime. I'm trying to remember what that album's called. I think it is just called Lifetime or whatever. But Alan Holdsworth's playing guitar on that. It's awesome.
Very cool.
Eddie Van Halen, of course, I love. You know, man, so many. I mean, Lindsey Buckingham.
That's going back.
Yeah, I love his playing. I love what's his face? Johnny Greenwood from Radiohead.
Yeah, he's a great player, man. That band in general is super creative. Very
one
cool band.
One of my favorites, man. I love it. I'm sure some of that influence shows up on my album.
You know what? I was just thinking the same thing. Yeah, a lot of it shows up there, man. A lot of it is on your album. That's a very good.
Huge fans of those guys.
Yeah. Hey, who's had the biggest influence on your life so far? Because you've interacted with so many people, and it sounds like you've had a lot of mentors, also your folks. Who would you say is the biggest influence?
Yeah, I mean, besides my folks, I mean, I've had several, you know, different key people throughout my life. You know, I mean, I guess I'd name a couple. I mean, one would be besides, you know, like my parents and like my Uncle Kurt and people like that. My first guitar teacher, John Papadolius, was a major influence on me. Great guy, phenomenal player. Really got me interested and excited about all genres, you know, which I credit him to me becoming such a proficient multi-instrumentalist, just because he got me interested in so many different things, you know, and he's a great multi-instrumentalist himself. And then there was a guy who I'm still friends with and chat with often, Bobby Scumaci. He's a phenomenal keyboard player and studio owner and operator and producer, engineer, multi-instrumentalist guy too, that is in Chicago still. And I credit him as the first guy who really gave me a chance in the studio and like allowed me to learn from him, you know, like, which was really cool. I mean, he didn't have to do that. I mean, I was just fresh out of college, and you know, he had played with some heavy people. He's played with like Al Di Meola. He's played with, you know, he played with Dave Mason for like 13 years or something like that. He had played with Fleetwood Mac and played with all kinds of people, man. I mean, he was like, you know, definitely a legit player and producer and whatnot. And he would let me sit in on sessions and watch him work, and then he started giving me chances to play on sessions, kind of kicking my ass in the studio and helping me develop. So I'd give him a lot of credit for things. And then he was just a good friend too, he was always very, very cool. And then down here, my buddy Saul Zonana has kind of filled a similar role to that for me. I mean, he's played with a ton of different people. I mean, like Joan Osborne. He toured with Ace Frehley for a long time.
Wow, that had to be interesting.
Yeah, he's got some good stories about that. I mean, he could actually be a good guy for you to interview, actually.
Love it, man.
Who else? I can't remember. A lot of famous bands that he's toured with and whatnot. But then again, his own music is just so cool. He's who co-produced my album with me.
Yeah.
And he's hooked me up with all kinds of people and introduced me to all kinds of people.
Did he make the introduction to Mario?
He did.
Yeah, because I saw his name.
He's on that site.
Yeah, he was on this.
Yeah, man.
That's cool.
I mean, Saul. Like I said, he's like the big brother I never had. He's just done a lot of things, not expecting anything returned, just kind of being like a big brother, helping me out,
Yeah, but you're the kind of person though. You're so eager and enthusiastic, and you have such a good work ethic that people are. It's easy to want to help a guy like you.
I appreciate
Not minimizing like what the effort that someone makes, but you're an easy guy. You're easy to get along with. No bullshit. But it's just because I've helped people in business, and
you'll get a return on your investment in me.
Yeah, it's like, you know what? I'm going to help this guy, and I'm going to see him become successful, and that's nice. And it's not like you're going to have to become a nursemaid for the person, and like the guy's going to be a dick and just like screw you over and use you. So it's I think it works both ways. You get a lot of satisfaction out of helping other people that paying it forward. That I know I do that. I didn't have that I wasn't able to get that help, but if I could give a little bit of something to somebody else so they could bypass some stress to the right person, man, that's great. That's really not, it's a rewarding thing to do. So I'm sure these guys felt just as happy to, to help you, not to minimize, the value of what they did from your perspective.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I always, I'm forever grateful to all those cats,
Hey, I want to be respectful of time, so 2 more questions because you've given me a lot more time than I expected. I really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Any hobbies or interests outside of music?
Yeah, I'm trying to develop more of those because
hard, man. With all that
it is kind of hard, yeah. Because I mean, not only am I doing all that film and TV stuff, but I'm also like gigging with like random people all the time too. So it's like last night I played with an artist I had never played with before, and 2 other musicians I had never played with before, and I had to learn a bunch of songs, and I always try to memorize them too, so I don't have to read charts.
Sure.
Which makes it a little harder, but I think it looks nicer on stage when you don't have a stand. I mean, sometimes it's unavoidable. Sometimes you get called up for something so last minute, you're just going to have to read charts, and that's just that. But I try
learning something is one thing, retaining something is something else, and it's two.
Right.
You got to. Retention means reps. You got to practice it 40 times, and then maybe you'll know it.
Right. Exactly.
So it's hard.
Yeah. So I mean, that being said, I'm constantly playing with new people or doing. I'll do like a couple weeks touring with someone and then never play with them again, or
yeah,
or it's like filling in for people and subbing and whatnot. And that I'm trying to do less and less of that because I'd rather just focus on my film and TV stuff. But most of my money that I've made off the film and TV stuff, some of it's starting to trickle in now because I've been doing it for almost 2 years now. But most of the big money I've made, I won't start seeing until like fourth quarter of this year.
Yeah, it's a slow burn, that business. But the nice thing is you have so many irons in the fire that once it hits, it suddenly becomes steady.
I mean, the train. I mean, I've had like at least 70 placements this year already.
Yeah, so you got momentum. The plane is off the ground at this point.
Yeah. Next year will be a very different year than this year.
That's awesome.
But
that's great.
But so in the meantime, I'm still, I'm trying to juggle all that, but I'm still needing to make money in the now, which is why I'm taking gigs with other people.
Yeah.
And sometimes even if I don't want to, I just do it because I just need the money in the now.
Man, we all got to eat. Trust me.
Right.
So what hobby are you trying to do or interest outside of music?
Well, I've been.
I was very impressed. You were like the second musician that's ever said I was on a treadmill. I don't know if most musicians.
I swim a lot.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I swim almost every day.
Like at the local Y or something?
No, I moved into a nice like kind of luxury apartment.
There you go, man. All you Hollywood types.
Yeah, I had to upgrade, man. I was
awesome.
I was rough. I mean, I'll tell you what, man. I moved to Nashville, renting out a room from someone.
Man, I'm so happy for you. That's
awesome. Then I moved up into an apartment, but the apartment was like, it was a nice like area, but the apartment was kind of run down, and there's like cockroaches coming up the drain and stuff like that, And then now I'm in like a brand new like luxury apartment with like a saltwater pool, and so I go swimming in the saltwater pool every day. And, it's been a rough ride.
Now, next time I talk to you, you're going to be telling me about your house. So I'm well earned, man. I'm happy for you.
Thanks, man. So
swim away.
Swim a lot, and then I like to go for walks and go hiking and stuff like that. And I love to play video games. That's probably usually at night when I'm done with everything and my girlfriend's gone to bed. I play some video games. Have a beer, play some video games.
Good for you, man. It's funny, when my wife goes to bed, I play guitar. Which is the last thing you want to do.
Oh God, yeah, man. There's sometimes, man, I don't even want to listen to music. Sometimes I
get it.
I want to take a total, 180 from it, just because I get so consumed. Like I said, sometimes, my brain feels like it's melting out of my ears because I've been just doing so many things throughout the day. I can't. Don't want to hear any more music.
Well, yeah, because the most difficult thing for you is you're not just in the studio playing some songs. You're in the studio actively managing probably 40 or 50 songs at once. That's a totally different ball game. I mean, that's a really night and day from just going to the studio and playing some sessions.
It's crazy. The cool thing, though, is you get used to just going with your gut instinct on things and just saying, hey, I need to get this done. I don't have, gone are the days where you're laboring over something for 2 weeks. Is this good? No, you just have to be able to do it.
But that's a great business lesson, man, because good is good enough usually, 90% of the time in business.
Yeah.
So, that's
well, the thing is if a music supervisor wants something changed, they'll tell you to change it.
Right.
But if they never get the song, because man, a lot of this is 24-hour turnaround, man.
Right.
That's the other thing I try to explain to people too. I get people all the time coming up to me, like they'll see my Instagram or something and see that I, all the licensing stuff I'll post up there or whatever, and they'll be like, oh man, how can I do this, or how can I get it? I'm like, well, to be honest, I mean, you have to be able to do all of this whole skill set, but you also have to be able to do it on short notice. It's like I said, well, sometimes we've had it where they're like, hey, can you get this to LA in 2 hours?
Wow.
Can you send this to us by, literally 2 hours? We've had that happen.
Yeah, I think this is one of those industries where the allure of it's like the allure of being a musician. People don't realize, you're an overnight success, but it took 10 years to be an overnight success, and you had how many nights sleeping on a fucking floor of a van in like Pontiac, Michigan in December or something.
Oh yeah, man, I've been on the floor of a van to a tour bus, it's been, I've done it all.
Right. So now you have another level of like vetting. So now you got to do this shit, 30 times a week or 20 songs a week from scratch, start to finish. So I think a lot of people want to get into it. Yeah. But it's like anything else. It's a vetting process, and anybody can get into anything they want. Are you willing to do the work?
Yeah. And and that's the thing, like guys like Shane and I, before we even had a shot to even be able to pitch this stuff to anyone. I've been recording myself and working on that stuff since I was a teenager. Right. I was multi-track recording and figuring out creative ways to bounce. This is before, Pro Tools or any of that shit was around. I was working on like 4 tracks and
you had a Radio Shack, a tape recorder.
Oh man, and I had it was hilarious. My parents were cool, man. They let me I always had band rehearsals at my place, and God, it must have been so loud, but they were just cool about it, But I remember having I was just like 16 or 15 or whatever, and I didn't have enough money for like mic stands, so I had like 2 mics hanging taped up on the ceiling, hanging over the drums, and then I had that was going to like a sub mixer. And then I had like a mic on the kick. So all the drums were like going to the sub mixer and then being routed to one track on the 4-track.
Oh my god!
And so every time we would record, I was like trying to get that right, trying to get the drums right, and then I had a mic on the bass cab, a mic on the guitar cab, and it was hilarious, man. And then I would try to bounce all that down, so I had room to try to make more tracks over that. It was fun. I was always tinkering with that stuff, and it's like, and I put a lot of time into that over the years.
Yeah.
So did guys like Shay, So you got to do that first before you can even attempt to think about,
No,
doing
I totally
that.
Get it. It's like the doctor that charges $10,000 for the operation, and then one that charges $30,000. They're not, one guy's been doing it for 20 years. The other guy's been doing it for 6 months. You get what you pay for, man. Everything else. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One final question, and man, I can't thank you enough for your time. You're just really generous, and I really enjoyed this. What's the most important lesson you've learned through all this, or most important thing you've actually learned about you?
I guess probably the most important thing that I stick to now is just to believe in myself. Like a lot of times I would find myself in situations, whether it was a band or whatever, where I knew something wasn't the right fit, or I knew I should be pursuing something else, but just didn't make the move on it, or just wasn't sure. I remember being in bands where I'm like, oh man, but what if this makes it big, or what if this does, then I'll look like an idiot for leaving or whatever, I've been in some bands in the past that were really cool, that had a lot of potential, or we made some really good recordings or songs, but I knew deep down that they weren't up for the amount of work that was in it. I was, but they weren't, and I was like basically dragging around a corpse with me.
So now you have the confidence that you won't do that. If it's not right for you, you'll just have the faith that something else will come along that will be right.
Yeah,
That's great.
I don't really worry about things too much anymore, because I know that if one thing doesn't pan out, doesn't work out, something else will. Because I'll be aggressive about making sure that happens. And just building my own brand was something I learned too. Before I started releasing solo albums, and I had always written solo material and actually had stuff probably probably a whole couple albums worth of stuff that I never released. It was before I really started producing myself. You know, like my first album I completely produced on my own.
Oh, wow.
I did that all. I engineered it and produced it all on my own. That's the Eclecticism album. But before that, you know, I've been trying to record places and whatnot, and stuff was turning out fine. It's just I wanted to spend more time on the recording. I wanted to put more bells and whistles on it. I wanted to really have ultimate control of how it was shaped. And that really pushed me into learning how to produce and learning how to be a better engineer and whatnot, so that if I want to, and I've done this, like the Hanging On song that Shay and I released. I mean, we did that at home. You know, there was no one else involved. It's just the two of us.
Wow.
You know, but I have the capability of literally playing everything and doing everything on my own and releasing it, you know, on my own if I want to. And that's a power that you can give to yourself if you work hard enough and learn those skills that can make you independent and not have to rely on other people. Because when you're in a band, you're unfortunately, whether you like it or not, you're reliant on other people. And, you know, sometimes that can be a great thing, because maybe you have an awesome band and maybe they really are hard workers and maybe something great really will happen. But most of the time it doesn't. Most of the time there's someone who really fucks up and drops the ball, you know.
Yeah, I totally get it. That's great, man. And
then you sink with them. You sink with that ship, and that sucks.
And I give you credit again, because I think that's hard to believe in yourself when in the beginning,
it is.
And you've gotten to the point where you're there now. And I'm real happy for you, and I know that you know, I know what that journey's like. It's not an easy one, so I give you credit.
Oh man, it's not easy at all, and it's an ongoing learning experience.
Yeah, man. It's stuff like that's a work in progress forever. You know.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, Klaus, you're an awesome guy. I cannot thank you enough for your time. I want everybody to check Klaus out online. It's Klaus Luchs, KlausLuchs.com. Is there anything else you'd like to promote, or anything you're working on now you want to let people know about? Your girlfriend's EP is going to drop. I'm assuming that's going to be on your site.
Keep checking out my website. The homepage has my blog post on it, which I'm trying to become better and better at, you know, keeping fairly up to date. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, you can find my albums and whatnot on my website. There's an albums page tab, and I'd say check out Z Sessions, which is my latest.
Great album. Are you like on social media or anything?
Oh yeah, I'm on Instagram. You can just search my name. It's at Klaus Luchs.
Awesome.
I have a Facebook band page, which I'm not always great about updating, but I try to. Too much social media stuff out there, man. That's so hard to keep up with. My website, I give the most attention, though.
Yeah, and it is a very one of the better, actually, one of the top, you know, 2 or 3 musician websites I've seen.
Thanks, man.
Listen,
thanks to you too.
Listen, thank you. I can't thank you enough. I want to thank everybody for listening. I hope you enjoyed learning more about Klaus as much as I did. Thanks so much to Klaus Luchs for spending time with us. Really appreciate it. Honestly, this is a pleasure to do, and I look forward to speaking with you again. Hey, thanks very much for listening. You can sign up to get notified of future episodes on our website at everyonelovesguitar.com. Now go play your guitar and have fun. Till next time, I'm out. Peace. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.